Hi there, this is Afro Perspectives. Kagame and the M23 rebels are deporting Congolese citizens from Goma to Rwanda. Rwanda claims it is repatriating Rwandans who were held hostage by the FDLR and were used as human shield. But that's totally an outrageous claim. These are Congolese citizens. The M23 and its Rwandan sponsors have been raiding villages, razing entire communities to the ground on the pretext that they sympathize with the FDLR. The M23 and its Rwandan sponsors claim that areas in North Kivu now under its control are liberated zones. But the question is, from whom? How do you get the M23, a force of occupation controlled by an aggressor state, that is Rwanda, claiming to liberate a territory in a foreign country? And how did we get to this point where Rwanda invades the eastern DRC and carries out acts amounting to ethnic cleansing? Those group of mostly women and children lost their homes in the M23's offensive from the north of the province of Kivu towards Sake. They are from the territories of Bambo, Kishishe, Kichanga, Bwiza, Karenga, Tongo, and Kalengera, as well as Ruchuru. Their homes in the rolling hills near the town of Karenga fell to the M23 in December of 2023, and since then they have been living in the camps for the displaced, nursing hopes of one day at least that they will be able to return to their homes in the rolling hills of Karenga. Now they find themselves caught up in Kagame's propaganda blitz. They are presented to the rest of the world as refugees from Rwanda. Kagame is systematically emptying the large countryside of territories like Masisi, Ruchuru, Kichanga, and is emptying these territories of its original Congolese inhabitants. First, that is the displaced. They camped in camps for the internally displaced, such as Bushagara, and then when the M23 made further advances towards Goma, the camp was emptied. They ended up in Bulengo camp for the internally displaced in the Green Lake district in west of Goma. From the map on the screen, you can see for yourself that as the M23 started advancing towards Sake, the northernmost point from which the internally displaced come from is Kisheshe. And when they finally reached Sake, just outside Goma, they had gone as far south as they could safely go. With the M23 now in occupation of Goma and the Rwandans running the show from behind the scenes, the locals now found themselves as refugees in their land of birth with nowhere else to go. But this raises another question. If Rwanda claims that the M23 is an entirely Congolese outfit, how do they claim that is the M23? How can they claim someone who has run away from their own village and is sheltering in a camp for internally displaced persons and has government IDs to prove that they are Congolese? How can they claim that these people are Rwandans? In what, how does that even happen? But sadly, this is where we are. And we are not only talking about the local Congolese of Hutu origin, but North Kivu is also home to groups such as the Bahunde, Bapere, Bakomo, Babira, Banyanga, and the Bashi. So from this angle, if you take 2,000 locals who were expelled last week at the Grand Barrier, that is the border between Rwanda and the DRC, they were expelled last week. What this means is that entire communities are being uprooted and expelled to Rwanda. And this is nothing new to Rwanda, because Rwanda as we have seen, and those who follow events from elsewhere, you will be reminded that Rwanda has been persuading the United Kingdom to send people who have no connection to Rwanda itself, to send them to Rwanda. And they are Kagame is even persuading Trump to send those people Trump is sending to places like El Salvador, to send them to Rwanda. So this is nothing new to Rwanda. And then back to the question of Congolese refugees. How does someone who speaks Kinyarwanda, and they are Rwandan from across the border, people like Ngarulira Ingoma, well, for most of us we know him as Wilingoma. How does Wilingoma, Ngarulira Ingoma to be precise, manage to do this feat, deport Congolese citizens from their own country of birth? The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, when it comes to repatriating refugees to their country of origin, it states that it coordinates with the governments to ensure that returns are safe, dignified, and voluntary. We've been shown by the UNHCR on the Rwandan side of the border processing those so-called refugees. And how does the M23, a non-state actor, coordinates with Rwanda to expel Congolese citizens from Goma? Does this mean that the UNHCR now recognizes the M23 as running North Kivu as a state in its own right? Something is not right here. Consider this. Goma fell to the M23 at the end of February, and Rwanda has been telling the rest of the world that it has no troops present in Goma, or Eastern DRC for that matter. So which country beside Rwanda itself is working with the UNHCR to verify that the people being expelled from Eastern DRC are actually Rwandan? The M23 has been banning the ID documents for those it has deported. You can see for yourself from the clip I've loaded on screen on there. That's Wilingoma and his band of bandits there, and what they are doing is essentially erasing evidence that the people they are deporting, they can no longer claim to be Congolese. Once they have crossed the border, they are there with no form of ID. They are just like the Rwandans. They will do whatever they want with them, and no one else is there to see. The M23 is basically trying to erase any evidence that the people expelled from their own country are actually Congolese. Take this one little inconvenient fact. The UNHCR tells us that before someone is repatriated to their country of origin, they organize go and see visits for the returnees to ascertain their region of origin. For the Congolese who had the misfortune of being expelled to another foreign country, like those women and children we have seen on screen, they are essentially being expelled to a country they have no links with, a country they have never lived in, a country they have no social networks. All they were asking is to return to places, territories like Bambo, Kishishe, Kichanga, Bwiza, Karenga, Tongo, and Kalengera. But these places, the M23 is claiming now these are liberated zones. Liberated from whom? And instead of actually facilitating the locals from the various territories of North Kivu, who have since been sheltering in the Green Lake district in the west of Goma, the M23 are now claiming these are Rwandan Hutu refugees. These are citizens of the DRC. They found themselves in the camps for the internally displaced simply because the M23 has pillaged their homes and made life under occupation very difficult. So how does this fit into Rwanda's plan of occupying and annexing the two Kivus? First, these are Congolese citizens with identity documents to prove their nationality. But that has been denied, and they are being deported to a country they have never lived in and have no interest in settling in. Once Kagame has emptied the Kivu countryside of its original inhabitants, Kagame can claim and make any falsehoods about Congolese refugees in Rwanda and repatriating them back to the DRC. In fact, Kagame claims that he has close to 500,000 Congolese refugees in Rwanda. Former DRC ambassador to the United Nations has testified before the UN that Rwanda's claims of protecting the Tutsis is simply a pretext to justifying invading and occupying Congolese territory. He has stated that the DRC does not have any reason to persecute the Tutsi, and state that in the DRC there are Tutsis from Burundi and who lead peaceful lives. Yet it is Rwanda which find it useful to claim that the Tutsis in Africa are only found in Rwanda. Take this little snippet of daily life in the so-called liberated areas under the control of the occupation force, that is M23. Goma has become one giant open-air prison where the bandits from the ranks of the M23 commit wanton acts of banditry, including nighttime burglaries, kidnappings, rapes. In case you might be wondering where I have got all these details, that's testimony from Emmanuel Ngaruye Muhozi, the former deputy in the Provincial Assembly of North Kivu. As if to remind the local population of who is in charge, young boys as young as 10 years are forcibly recruited into the military structures of the M23 itself. As you can see from that clip I have loaded on screen, those kids jumping the wall from school are running away from the M23. They are running away from being forcibly forced to join the M23. Consider the fate of Chief Prosper Kimanuka Musekura. His entire family and other villagers under his authority were massacred for refusing to submit and recognize the authority of the M23's force of occupation. Chief Prosper Musekura of Kibiza 2 village in the Nyirangongo territory of North Kivu was killed, and with his entire family, his wife and 3 children, eliminated from the face of the earth. And Rwanda has claimed to have repatriated close to 2,000 people, mostly women and children. One would want to ask, what happened to the men? The M23 is raiding villages, and those not strong enough to flee from their violence end up as captives and hostage to the M23. That explains the presence of women and children in and around Goma, and that explains those people you see being channeled across the border, expelled to Rwanda. Thank you for taking time to follow this piece. If there is anything that I have got wrong or I failed to mention, please drop your comments below. We are only a small channel and your support is highly appreciated. So please subscribe and don't forget to give me some likes. Thank you. Bye.